There is a prison you cannot see. It has no bars, no guards, no walls of concrete or steel. Yet you are trapped inside it. And what makes it most insidious is that you believe yourself to be free. This prison exists in your mind, constructed not through external coercion, but through a mechanism far more subtle and effective. Capitalism has evolved beyond the crude exploitation of bodies and labor. It has discovered something far more profitable: the colonization of consciousness itself. The modern subject is not oppressed from without, but imprisoned from within, transformed into both inmate and warden of a psychological cell built from desires, anxieties, and the relentless demand for self-optimization. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han describes our era as one of psychopolitics, where power operates not through prohibition and discipline, but through seduction and motivation. We are no longer subjects of repression, but entrepreneurs of ourselves, constantly encouraged to maximize our potential, optimize our performance, and transform every aspect of existence into a project of self-improvement. This shift represents a fundamental transformation in how power operates. Where the old disciplinary society said, "You must," the achievement society says, "You can." This subtle linguistic shift conceals a more pernicious form of control. The imperative to achieve, to be positive, to constantly improve oneself creates a tyranny more absolute than any external authority because it appears to come from within. You are not forced to work endlessly. You choose to. You are not compelled to be productive every moment. You want to be. The prison guard is your own ambition. Consider how you experience your daily existence. You wake to an alarm that interrupts whatever dream or rest your body naturally requires, because productivity cannot accommodate the rhythms of organic life. Before you have fully returned to consciousness, you reach for your phone, that small device that serves as the window to your prison cell. You scroll through social media, where everyone presents their most optimized, successful, enviable self. Already, within minutes of waking, the comparison begins. Already, you are measuring yourself against others, finding yourself wanting, feeling the anxiety that you're not doing enough, being enough, achieving enough. This is not paranoia or personal weakness. This is the designed architecture of contemporary existence. The brilliance of this system lies in its invisibility. Older forms of power were obvious. The factory supervisor watching workers, the teacher disciplining students, the state surveillance apparatus monitoring citizens. These were visible manifestations of control that could be identified, resisted, opposed. But when power operates through positive injunctions, through the language of freedom, potential, and self-realization, resistance becomes nearly impossible. How do you resist what appears to be your own authentic desire? How do you oppose a system that speaks in the vocabulary of liberation? The achievement society has discovered that the most effective form of exploitation is self-exploitation, because the exploited subject believes themselves to be operating in freedom. The neoliberal regime has mastered the art of making domination feel like empowerment. You are told that you are the architect of your own destiny, the CEO of your personal brand, the master of your fate. Every self-help book, every motivational speaker, every corporate training seminar reinforces this narrative. If you succeed, it is because of your merit, your hard work, your positive mindset. If you fail, it is because you did not try hard enough, did not want it badly enough, did not optimize yourself sufficiently. This logic is devastating because it privatizes both success and failure. There is no structural critique, no recognition of systemic inequality, no acknowledgement that the game itself might be rigged. There is only the individual and their capacity for self-transformation. When you internalize this worldview, you become your own most efficient oppressor. Han identifies depression as the signature illness of our age, and this is no accident. The achievement subject, constantly striving to meet impossible standards of productivity and success, eventually exhausts itself. But this exhaustion is not recognized as a reasonable response to unreasonable demands. Instead, It is pathologized as individual dysfunction. You are not tired because you live in a system designed to extract maximum value from your psychic energy. You are tired because something is wrong with you. You lack resilience. You need better stress management techniques. You should try meditation, exercise, positive affirmations. The system never questions itself. It merely offers you new tools for adapting to its requirements. The prison offers therapy to help you adjust to your confinement. What makes this psychopolitical prison so effective is that it operates through what Han calls smart power. Unlike the brutal power of authoritarian regimes that rule through violence and fear, smart power rules through seduction and satisfaction. It does not say no, it says yes. It does not forbid, it encourages. It does not limit your desires. It multiplies them infinitely. You can be anything, do anything, have anything. If only you work hard enough, optimize efficiently enough, brand yourself successfully enough. This infinite horizon of possibility is itself a form of imprisonment because it ensures you can never arrive at satisfaction. There's always another goal, another achievement, another version of yourself that could be better, more successful, more optimized. The prison has no walls because it has no outside. There is only the endless corridor of self-improvement stretching into infinity. The digital age has accelerated this process exponentially. Your phone is not merely a tool. It is a portal through which psychopolitical power flows directly into your consciousness. Social media platforms are engineered to capture and monetize your attention, to keep you scrolling, comparing, envying, desiring. Every click, every like, every share generates data that is harvested and analyzed to manipulate you more effectively. You're not the customer of these platforms. You're the product. Your mental life, your emotional responses, your patterns of attention and desire. All of this is extracted, quantified, and sold. The prison is profitable precisely because its inmates generate their own confinement. The transformation of the individual into an achievement subject creates what Han calls auto-exploitation, which is more efficient than any external exploitation could ever be. The worker who exploits themselves does so without limit because they experience their labor as freedom. There are no regulated working hours in the prison of the mind. You check your email at midnight. You think about projects during vacation. You feel guilty for any moment not dedicated to productivity. The boundary between work and life dissolves, not because an employer demands it, but because you have internalized the logic of total availability. You're always on call to yourself, always accountable to the internalized voice that asks whether you're doing enough, being enough, achieving enough. This voice never sleeps, never grants clemency, never acknowledges that you might have done sufficient work for the day. It is the voice of the achievement society speaking through you, using your own psyche as its instrument. What you experience as stress, burnout, or anxiety is not a personal failing, but a systemic condition. The achievement society produces these states necessarily and continuously. When every individual is responsible for their own success, competition becomes total. Your colleagues are not comrades, but rivals. Your friends' achievements are measurements against which you find yourself deficient. Even leisure becomes competitive. Who travels to more exotic locations? Who has the more interesting hobbies? Who curates the more enviable lifestyle on social media? There is no sphere of existence that remains outside the logic of achievement and optimization. Even rest must be productive, recharging you for the next cycle of performance. Sleep itself becomes another project to optimize with tracking devices and efficiency metrics. The prison extends into your dreams. Han observes that we live in a society characterized by the violence of positivity. This is not the violence of prohibition, where power says you cannot, but the violence of unlimited possibility, where power says you can do anything. This sounds liberating until you realize it means you must do everything. There is no excuse for failure when all barriers have supposedly been removed, when you have been told you can become whatever you want. The violence of positivity is the violence of self-judgment. the constant verdict that you're not living up to your potential, not actualizing your possibilities, not becoming the best version of yourself. This violence is more destructive than external oppression because you inflict it upon yourself, and because it masquerades as encouragement and opportunity. The prison of the mind is maintained not through force, but through exhaustion. You are too tired to think critically, too depleted to imagine alternatives, too anxious about your own performance to question the system that demands it. Political resistance requires energy, and the achievement society ensures you have none to spare. Every ounce of your vitality is channeled into the project of self-optimization, leaving nothing for collective action, for solidarity, for the kind of communal struggle that might actually challenge the system. This is not accidental. A population of exhausted achievement subjects, each struggling alone with their own inadequacy, poses no threat to the order that exploits them. The question then becomes, how do you escape a prison that exists in your own mind? How do you resist a system that speaks through your own voice, that uses your desires as its mechanism of control? Han suggests that liberation begins with recognizing the nature of your confinement. The first step is to see that what you experience as personal inadequacy is actually systemic violence, that your exhaustion is not weakness, but a reasonable response to unreasonable demands. You must learn to distinguish between your authentic needs and the desires that have been implanted in you by a system that profits from your perpetual dissatisfaction. This is extraordinarily difficult because the achievement society has colonized the very language of authenticity and self-realization. It tells you that endless striving is your true nature, that the desire for more is simply human ambition, that anything less than total self-optimization is settling for mediocrity. Resistance requires what Han calls the tiredness that opens the world. This is not the exhausted burnout of the achievement subject, but a profound tiredness that allows you to step back from the frenetic pace of achievement and optimization. In this tiredness, you become capable of what he terms deep boredom, a state that the achievement society cannot tolerate because it is unproductive, because it opens space for genuine contemplation rather than constant activity. Deep boredom allows for what Han calls vita contemplativa, the contemplative life that has been almost entirely eradicated by the tyranny of action and achievement. In stillness, in genuine rest, in moments where you refuse the demand to be productive, you create small openings in the prison walls. The prison of the mind also requires that you remain isolated, competing against others rather than recognizing common cause. Solidarity is dangerous to this system because it allows people to see that their individual struggles are actually collective conditions. When you share your experiences of inadequacy, burnout, and anxiety with others, you begin to recognize patterns. You realize that if everyone feels they are failing, perhaps the standards themselves are impossible. Perhaps the system is designed to make you feel perpetually insufficient. This recognition can be the beginning of resistance, but requires breaking through the isolation that the achievement society manufactures. You must risk vulnerability, must admit that you are tired, that you cannot do it all, that you need others. This admission feels like failure in a society that valorizes self-sufficiency, but it is actually the first act of freedom. Ultimately, escaping the silent prison requires reclaiming your attention, your time, your mental life from the forces that have colonized them. It requires saying no to the demand for constant availability, constant productivity, constant optimization. It requires creating spaces in your life that serve no purpose, generate no value, contribute nothing to your personal brand or professional development. It requires rediscovering what Han calls the art of lingering, the capacity to remain with something or someone without instrumentalizing them, without asking what you can get from the encounter. The prison dissolves not through dramatic rebellion, but through small acts of refusal, through the patient reconstruction of a life that is not organized around achievement, but around presence, contemplation, and genuine relation to others. The bars are made of thought, and they can be unmade by thinking differently. But this requires first recognizing that you are imprisoned, and that recognition is the most difficult and most necessary act of all.